Hello, you guys. So, Thomas and Friend is collapsing. There's no other way of putting it. This is even more annoying because the show has made a decent amount of progress in Series 17. The franchise is closing in its former glory that it had during Classic Thomas. For those who are not aware, Classic Thomas was Series 1 to 7, 1 to 4 of which are based on the Railway series by Rev. W. Awdry and Christopher Awdry. This, apart from arguably Series 7, was the best of Thomas and Friends. Then they made Thomas and the Magic Railroad, which was mostly a failure, due to the test audience making them cut out P.T. Boomer. It could have been a great film. The original script was certainly much better. I'll leave a link to where you can get your script in the description. The franchise was then sold to Hit Entertainment, and the show reached its lowest point. Series 8 to 6, or the Sharon Miller era, was by far the worst. Series 8 to 9 were okay, Series 1 to 12 were bearable. There are a few good episodes in the CGI, and the specials were quite good, even though they played with the history of the island, Hero of the Rails. Left some big things unexplained, Misty Island Rescue, had some stupid plot ideas, Day of the Diesels, and quite unrealistic ideas, Blue Mountain Mystery. Mostly, though, it was just awful. Then the company was purchased by Mattel and made some big changes. They brought in a new director, a new narrator, and most importantly, a new head writer in Andrew Brenner. Andrew Brenner got the show back up on its feet in the 4 series they had between taking over and now. If the series was a man walking up and down a hill, depending on how successful the TV show was, from series 1 to 6 he'd be climbing up the hill. At series 7 he would stay level. During series 8 and 9 he would gradually be walking downhill. Sometime between series 10 to 13 he would trip and go plummeting down between series 13 to 16. At series 17 he would start going up again. At series 20 he would soar up, but at Journey Beyond Sodor he would wobble, then start going downhill again at Big World Big Adventures. Of the classic era, the high point was probably Series 4, and the low point Series 7. Of the Sharon Miller era, Series 8 was the high point, and Series 13 to 16 was the lowest point. Of the Andrew Brenner era, Series 20 was the high point, and, of what we got so far, so excluding Big World Big Adventures, Series 19 was the low point. Anyway, if Big World Big Adventures wasn't bad enough, Edward and Henry are being kicked out of the Steam team. Now, I know that I'm in the majority when I say that this is a terrible idea. The characters of Edward and Henry were made back in 1943. Edward was the first character and Henry the third character to be created in the franchise. If they had to drop 2 main characters, I would have made it Emily and Toby. When they first made a Steam team back in Series 8, it came between Emily and Duck for an 8th member, and they went for Emily to give a female character a more prominent role. I would also drop her because she was the latest to be created and not a Railway series character. And I would drop Toby, even though he's a classic Awdry character and my second favourite character, after Edward, because he was the last of the others to be introduced and has the least made appearances as the lead. The truth about Toby was okay, but a shed for Edward was better. Now, I know they've done this to give more female characters leads, but I wouldn't just throw in 2 random new characters and replace Edward and Henry with them immediately. If more female characters had to be in the Steam team, I'd make it characters we already know and love, such as Mavis, Daisy, and Rosie. I hope that they have the sense not to write Edward and Henry out of the series altogether, and I hope that they still get episodes as the lead. Edward moving sheds definitely sets potential for future episodes. Also, Big World's Big Adventures is a terrible idea because, whilst it's okay and at times quite good to step outside reality, Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure wasn't 100% realistic, but it was an amazing movie. This is just a step too far. Thomas just wouldn't travel the world. I can cope with him going to the UK and Ireland, as Sodor is technically in the UK, and he's done so at least 3 times in a TV series, in Thomas and Special Letter, The Great Race, and Journey Beyond Sodor. But beyond that is just silly. And what's happening with Sodor when he's away? And it's not like the Fat Controller just let one of his engines travel the world. Now, I have one way to potentially save this awful idea. It is as follows. Thomas meets a race car called Ace, as planned in the original movie. That night at Tidmouth Sheds, he finds Edward there, and finds this odd. Edward explains that this is because Philip's shed was destroyed in a storm the previous night, so he's come here. Thomas says how he met Ace, and how he wants to travel the world. This reminds Edward of a little engine who wanted to see the world. Gordon angrily tells the 2 engines to go to sleep. Thomas then dreams about going travelling the world and meeting Nia. The movie and the first half of season 22 is Thomas travelling the world. The second half of season 22 is still in Thomas's dreams, but is on Sodor. He wakes up that morning to find it was all a dream. He never travelled the world, Leah and Rebecca never existed, and he finds out the Philip shed isn't going to be repaired anytime soon because of economic reasons, and Edward is staying there, and Edward and Henry are back in the Steam Team. So, I could say much more about this, but I'd probably just end up repeating myself, and the gist of it is that Big World, Big Farts is a bad idea, and Edward and Henry being kicked out of the Steam Team is an even worse one. One thing I have to say, though, is that I do not blame Andrew Brenner at all. I think it is all Mattel's fault, and Brenner had nothing to do with it. I'd say it might have been Brenner who kept Toby in the Steam Team, as Toby is one of his favourite characters, but other than that, I think he had nothing to do with it. I implore anyone who's watching who has any impact on the Thomas franchise to take this into consideration. If Andrew Brenner, Ian McHugh, or anyone involved in Thomas franchise is watching this, just stop it. If anyone with a bigger YouTube channel, which might be watched by someone involved in Thomas and Friends, I'm looking at you, Unlucky Tug, to make a video on this. If anyone from the Audrey family, or anyone who knows the Audrey family, to get in touch with Chris Audrey, as he might be able to persuade Mattel to bring Edward and Henry back. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm currently making a script that I hope will become a special one day that brings Edward and Henry back as main characters, and I'm also bringing Boko and Duke back for Railway Series lovers. I hope to post part 1 soon, but no promises.